Hello, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Schools, where we take the opportunity to inform our public about the things that are happening in Fulton County schools. I'm Mike Looney, your superintendent of schools and the host for this show. Today I have a very special guest. I'm so excited that you're here. Would you introduce yourselves to us, please?
Good morning, Dr. Looney. My name is Montreal Bell, and I'm the Director of Federal Programs, managing the CARES and ESSER funds for the district.
So, federal programs. For the layperson, what does federal programs mean?
Well,
just broadly.
Just in general, the federal programs definition that we have would include all money coming from the federal government. And so in this particular initiative, these are the funds that we have called ESSER, and they are managing our response to the COVID-19 pandemic.
So we received some additional funding from the federal government as it relates to the response to COVID-19. And you are charged with the planning, the organization, the facilitation of using that money in compliance with federal law and to the benefit of boys and girls. Is that an accurate statement?
That's an accurate statement. I manage the funds that have been planned for by the board, leadership, district leadership, and I make sure that we are spending those funds according to the guidance that was given to us by the state and the federal government. And so it's my job to make sure that we don't get in trouble with the government and that we utilize the funds to our fullest potential to maximize the greatest impact for students and families and teachers in our district.
Well, that's incredibly important work. If I were a person in the community and wanted to find out more about how the district is using those monies, where would I go to?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. We have set up a website on our Fulton County Schools website, and if you scroll over to departments and type in Bridge to Success, you will see all the information that we have posted about the specific initiatives, the overall goals and priorities that we are using to address, and then also financial reports and previous videos of some of the board meetings that we have used to inform the public about our plans and just some of the necessary requirements of the grant. But it's Bridge to Success at fultonschools.org.
Okay, so we put all this on the internet, and I heard you mention the board and reports. So how frequently do you give reports to the board about our progress and the expenditures relating to these funds?
We report to the board every month. On the Thursday meeting, we report to the board just updates about compliance requirements, initiatives that are taking off, and maybe some of the data from those initiatives. We provide financial reports that let the public know and let the board know the individual expenditures that are taking place each month. And we also use that opportunity to get questions from the board after they've met with their communities and maybe they have additional questions. They ask me questions about how we're doing with those funding and with the funding and how we are making plans to move forward. These funds that we have now, our latest round, are with us until FY 2024. And so we have made some long-range plans to utilize those funds to help improve our student success, to help improve our families, and make sure that our teachers have the support that they need with the necessary training and just resources in general that we probably would not have been able to afford without this additional funding.
So we developed a plan to use these monies, and the plan is called Bridge to Success.
Yes.
So what generally, in big buckets, what's in Bridge Success? What's in our plan?
Wow. So first of all, I just want to back up for just a moment and just inform the public that we received 3 rounds of funding from the federal government. ESSER 1, which is the CARES Act, helped the district to first develop some strategies and to have money to pay for some of those things that we were dealing with COVID-19, PPE, food distribution, helping to make sure that we were meeting the needs of our students and families while they were quarantined and and unable to get into our schools. And so that was our first round of funding. Our second round of funding is ESSER 2, and it's the CRRSA Act. This round of funding was about $75 million, and that funding was targeted to make sure we support students with learning loss. So we developed summer school, extended learning programs, small group instruction. We put staff in buildings to deal with one-on-one tutoring for students. And then this third round, which we will have until 2024, this is really the anchor for our Bridge to Success plan. This part of our program is also known as the American Rescue Plan, and this is where we have decided that we would address a number of things that we would not have been able to pay for with general taxpayer funding. And so the first thing we did was address literacy in our district. We realized that as we were shut down and students were depending on parents to help them or just working with themselves, we needed to address literacy initiatives. And so we are using funding to address literacy. We're also using funding to expand program options for students and help with dropout prevention, virtual expansion, and also making sure that our CTAE programs have the opportunity to expand in our elementary, middle, and high schools. So those are just some of the major buckets that we have. The biggest thing I did want to say is that one thing that is really important is that we continue with district operations, that the district has funding to provide incentives to staff if necessary, and to also make sure that we are meeting those needs that our staff members have with health and wellness, and just supporting some of those extra efforts that we would not be able to afford without this fund.
So we had 3 buckets or grants from the federal government, ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and now this last round. And so the first one was buying personal protective equipment for students and staff members, masks, cleaning supplies, everything related to how do we mitigate risk in schools. The second round was more how do we begin the process of recovering from the learning disruption that our students had. And I think last year was the largest summer school program that we've ever had in the district. Is that right?
Yes, it was the largest summer school program that we've ever had. And then this summer we are expecting just as big a program. And thankfully we were able to pay incentives to get teachers to work, to get as many students as we could in the buildings, because we do know that they needed additional support. And so we are using funds from ESSER 2, and we will have enough funding to help continue with those students who still need support with ESSER 3 funds, the American Rescue Plan.
So it seemed like it was protect, begin the recovery process, and now the last bucket is really about transformation. It's really about what do we do now that our students are back in school to not go back to business as usual. Is that an accurate description?
That's an accurate description. And one thing that the state and the federal government has been very specific about is knowing that the impact that the pandemic has had on students and families. And so we are also focusing on making sure we prepare our students for post-pandemic life, making sure that we provide additional wraparound supports for them so that they can manage the behaviors, the emotions, the feelings, and strategies that they need to be successful. And so this round of funding will focus on making sure that we can prepare our students for beyond, and then hopefully if something like this ever happens again, that they will have those strategies and they will be equipped to push forward and push through.
So you mentioned that our students need some wraparound services. Some of our students haven't physically been in school until this year, 2 years. And so their maturation was delayed, their socialization was delayed, being with peer groups their age in large numbers. And so that has had an impact. And I know parents and principals and teachers have been expressing concern about that gap that exists there. So give us some examples of wraparound services that we're doing in Fulton with these federal dollars.
Oh, wow. So we are really excited. We had a safe center at Banneker High School with another grant previously that has sunset. So we are going to expand that grant we're going to use this grant to expand that program at Banneker and redesign it, because even though they were serving students with food pantry and clothing closets, they also realized that families needed additional supports, job training, classes for just parents that needed additional help. And they are also available for students in K through 12. So any family who needs help with academics, job placement, etc., they are now going to redesign the Banneker Safe Center to accommodate those needs. We're also going to be able to expand that work at North Springs High School and Tri-Cities High School. And so one thing that's really good about our Safe Center initiative is that it's going to be very specific to that community and the needs of that community. So if we have parents who need English as a second language classes, then we need to make sure we offer those. If we have parents who need to be provided resources, we'll have a social worker in those buildings to be able to assist them with that. They will have an administrative support person to also be able to provide them with connect them with resources in the schools. The other thing that we are doing as far as wraparound support, we have added another initiative. As a part of the ARP funds, we have to do a review every 6 months. And so, as you mentioned, the maturation of some of our students, or just not really even having interactions with others, has really put some students in a difficult position to be able to manage significant behaviors. And so we are going to be able to hire some behavior interventionists to help those students manage those behaviors, and to help teachers with strategies and help schools understand how we need to support those students. And so we are hoping that we will have just short-term people in our buildings. And that's just a great thing about this funding, is that we were able to now say, hey, this is a short-term need that needs to be met, and we're going to be able to bring some additional support for students and teachers in our buildings.
Interesting. Our students have so many needs, and had it not been for this federal funding, we would really be wringing our hands on how do we help support our students return to a more normal school setting with all the supports they need. I want to bring two more things up really quickly. One is, you mentioned CTAE, pushing CTAE down to the middle school and elementary school, and that stands for Career Technical Agricultural Education. So what does that look like, if you don't mind telling us?
Oh, wow. So the Career and Technical Education program in Fulton County Schools has already been funded just as a general, it's a part of our everyday program. But I know that, we all know that one of the initiatives that we wanted to do was to help support middle school students who would like to matriculate into high schools, and helping them to develop those pathways at an earlier age than just deciding, here at the onset of high school, I have to take all of my required courses, but I also want to be engaged in this pathway. And so being able to provide some of our middle schools with the equipment that they may need to develop those programs, and then even in 3 of our elementary schools, we had already started working with that initiative in 3 schools that were already interested in doing that. But being able to buy the equipment that they need to be able to give those students unique experiences, and actually authentic experiences, is an opportunity now that we have, which we probably wouldn't have been able to afford with just regular state funding.
Yeah, I remember being a teacher, and one of the most powerful experiences I had as a classroom teacher, I had just finished teaching my students measurement in 4th grade. And, you know, I was having a hard time making it relevant, making it connect. And so we decided to build picnic tables for the schools. So we actually applied what we learned in the textbook by building picnic tables in schools. So I know we have some elementary schools that have construction programs and electrical, circuitry, that sort of thing. So making learning relevant. And now, because of this funding, we're able to push that down further and really try to find a hook for students to make learning relevant. That is an incredibly powerful thing.
Can I add one point
Yes,
about
please
that?
do.
The best thing about it is that the elementary and middle schools will all tie into the high schools.
Oh, wow.
So we know that the experiences that they are getting early on will be able to push up. And so whenever they get into high school, they will be well ahead of their peers who perhaps didn't participate in the program at their middle school. And so I think it's just a really unique and special experience for our students.
So here's my last question, just very quickly. there must be a tremendous amount of paperwork associated with federal funding. Not disparaging the federal government at all, but I know there's always lots of red tape. So are we doing a good enough job, or better yet, how are you managing that burden?
You know, I will say that, yes, compliance is always a part of every grant program. But, and we will have an annual performance report coming up very soon. And really and truly, I think the government just wants to know, how are we impacting students? And so, although it's a requirement and can be burdensome, it really gives us the opportunity to look at the impact and to assess what we're doing, to see how much we've helped students and just how much better off they are, where they started and where they're ending up. And so,
accounting for every single penny.
Every penny.
Thank you so much for joining us at Let's Talk Schools. This has been a very powerful session of Let's Talk Schools today. Thank you so much for joining me. If parents or the community wants to know more, we've listed it on our website. Thank you. We look forward to seeing you again soon.